So, who is your neighbor, and what do you do to celebrate the fact that you live so close together? In this episode, we're going to make sure that you know who your neighbor is and that you feed them some good stuff. Stick around for EWTN's Savoring Our Faith. You know, that gospel passage of the Good Samaritan from Luke's gospel really challenges me to find out exactly who is my neighbor, and more importantly, how are you going to serve them? So in this episode, we're going to be making a special meal dedicated to our neighbors of the north. We're going to be making a croque monsieur, a beautiful grilled cheese sandwich with a sauce mornay, which is basically a cheese bechamel sauce to put on top, finishing off on the grill pan to achieve some beautiful caramelized textures and flavors. We're also going to be making again, dedicated to our neighbors of the north, a maple glaze for some beautiful salmon. And that is going to be accompanied with a beautiful buttery crusted potato that we're going to finish off in a pan. And what I've got right now is basically some butter that is melted, because I'm going to start the process for my croque monsieur. I understand that if you put an egg on top of it and finish it off that way, that's called a croque madame. And I just love this sandwich, which I had a few different times when I visited my family in Canada. Oh, Canada, oh, Canada. And I know that we've got EWTN coming out to you because my family tells me they see this show all the time. They live out in Toronto as well as in Vancouver. And we know that there is a great French influence there as well. So when I had a chance to visit even more north, I had a chance to go out to Quebec and Montreal. Beautiful spots out there, and so filled with so much faith. It's amazing. The churches, it just brought me back to Europe, really. And what I had out there were just, I think I had a croque monsieur every day. And it's pretty simple. It's just basically a grilled cheese sandwich with some meat in it, but they had a little bit of extra goodness, which I'm making for you right now. So I'm just melting some butter. I'm going to also add to it some flour, and I'm basically going to create a roux, okay? And so I actually can put this all together because it's just going to whisk all together. And then to this, I'm also going to add 2 types of cheeses. I basically have some Parmesan cheese, and I've also just have some smoked Gruyere as well. This is really good, and it's just going to add some more flavor to it. And then I am going to also zest a little bit of nutmeg in here as well, and I'm just going to go ahead and put that in right now. A little bit goes a long way, and this kind of adds an earthy kind of quality and also a little bit of a sweetness as well. Okay. So I've got this melting, I've got my butter melted. So I'm gonna make 4 sandwiches, I think. Butter is melting, and you don't wanna cook this too quickly. Let me get a brush to brush both sides of this bread, just lightly. I'm also going to put a little bit of a nonstick on the pan as well. You know, our neighbors to the north, we share so much in common, namely a continent. And also, we share a couple other things in common too, like our Catholic and Christian identity. Out in Montreal, I know that there are a few historical spots really where they celebrate the Catholic faith, and they celebrate in a way the fact that you've got some beautiful saints and some beautiful shrines out there as well. We also know that we celebrate in common the fact that, you know, the North American martyrs, they were kind of all in the same area, weren't they? That Canada-American border where the missionaries came out to that mission country and shared the faith. And it was not easy for them at all. In fact, it meant death for many of them. But more importantly, that seed, blood, served as a seed to water the faith. And now that's why our countries can celebrate our faith without any fear. All right, in this pan, I'm going to get heating the butter up once again. I'm going to start toasting. By the way, I've got this little press here that that I'm gonna help to make sure that the sandwiches all go together. I'm gonna heat up my grill pan, and then we are going to have a very delicious time making these sandwiches for our neighbors. You know, when I grew up, it wasn't like a Norman Rockwell scene, but it was enough to know that neighbors were important. You know, when my parents came to this country from the Philippines, we relied on our neighbors to get us through things because, my goodness gracious, they didn't have much. They just didn't have much. And even though all of my neighbors were Anglos, I still called them aunt and uncle, you know, because it just meant that we were close enough that we would become family. And how did we do that? Through food. Honestly, I think the only reason why I had friends when I was a kid, because my mother cooked so well. I remember my brother's friends, I just called them big white kids because they were so tall and they were just so not Filipino looking, right? And they would just come over and they would just love coming to my house, and they would eat rice with A1 steak sauce on it. Not my favorite meal, but for them it was awesome. It was like a little bit of a snack for them. All right, so this roux is cooking up well. I don't want it to get too dark. I just want to make sure that the flour is cooked out in it. And then we're gonna add some cheese to it as well. Okay. And as well as some cream. So we're gonna wait for these to kind of just grill up just slightly. I'm gonna spread onto it as well some Dijon mustard. And as soon as these get warm and toasty, I'm gonna flip them over, do the same thing. Now let's start with this hot pan of just melted butter. To this, I cut out in advance, and you can do this on a mandolin, which is basically a machine to help cut things very evenly and quickly. I peeled some just starchy potatoes, and I just started cutting these out. Now what we're gonna do is we're just gonna start layering these right on top. Just layering right on top, okay? Very, very simple. And then I'm gonna season them with a little bit of salt and pepper. And then I'm gonna keep layering it. And then guess what I'm gonna use? I'm gonna use this press to push it all down as well. So, there you go, salt and pepper. Can you see just how easy this really is gonna be? There's gonna be enough butter on here, by the way, to work its way through the rest. However, I am going to add a little bit of olive oil to make sure that we achieve, I would say, proper crisping and proper coloring as well. Oh, another layer of salt and pepper on top of that. Now, when I went to Canada, it felt like America, in a way, because you have all the stores, you have all the shops, you have all basically the same kind of amenities of North America. I did think it was a little bit more expensive, but at the same time, I was so mightily impressed with the churches. Another layer of potatoes, there's another layer of salt and pepper, as well as another drizzle of olive oil. We're gonna bring the heat down to a medium heat. This is cooking up beautifully to the point where I think I am now ready to add the regular milk. Okay, milk is gonna go in. It's just going to thicken up. We want that to thicken up a little bit before we add the cheeses. Okay, let's turn the heat up just a little bit more. Guess what you're gonna do? You're gonna help me press into that. These are definitely getting toasty. Don't want it to get too toasty, okay, folks? Not too toasty at all. But now that we've got this here, I'm gonna just start assembling my sandwich now. Using that same buttered brush, just a little dab of just Dijon, French Dijon, because we know that the Canadians, I think they share as their national language is going to be French. And I love French. Why? Because a lot of the early Mariologists were French, and that's what I studied in school. So the Mariologists definitely help us to understand the beauty of the Blessed Mother. And that's why there are so many churches dedicated not only to our Blessed Mother, but to her own mother, St. Anne, that beautiful basilica way out there in Montreal, the Quebec region out there. Absolutely beautiful. Okay, what we've got now is basically we're going to assemble these sandwiches with some ham, and I just used some cooked ham that's already out there. We're going to just put some cheese. Hello, this is a basic, ham and cheese sandwich, but it's going to have some extra delicious goodness. And so let me just take a moment and put these together, topping it off with some of the cheese that we are going to use for the sauce, the cheese sauce. Ah, yeah, that'll be delicious. And you'll see how this comes together so quickly. It'll be a feast not just for you, but for your neighbor as well. We are certainly challenged by the scriptures to remember who is our neighbor. The Good Samaritan, he was not a physical neighbor to this poor man who was basically dying in the streets. He showed that neighborhoods are more spiritual than physical realities. So whenever, especially through the media of international television, whenever we hear about stories of our Christian brothers and sisters who are struggling because of world wars or natural calamities, we may not be able to physically be there to help them, but we can certainly support them through our generosity, not just in financial support, but most importantly, through the generosity of our prayers. I know that the Good Samaritan, when he left that poor guy being beat up on the street, I know he left not only money, but he was also probably praying for him the entire time. All right, I have got my bechamel pretty much thickened up. I think you'll like the way it looks. It's very kind of creamy and luscious. That's kind of what we're looking for. Now to make it the French, what they call the Mornay, I'm just going to add a little bit of cheese to it, and I'm just going to add some Parmesan, little nod and wink to the Italians. And then I probably told you the wrong cheese. I think I said it was a smoked Gouda. It's not. It's a smoked Gruyere. And so that's a big mea culpa for me, all right? I kind of messed that up. Let me check out to see how this is doing real quick. Oh yeah, that's looking good. Let that continue to cook down. This is going to go, like I said, on a medium-high heat. And I've got, let me add the rest of this on there because I assembled my sandwich with basically the ham and cheese. I'm now going to return it to the other side so that we can get some nice crusting going. This is going to be kind of melty and gooey and oh so delicious. And when I messed up on the cheese, it happens. We make mistakes. And sometimes these mistakes hurt our neighbor. And our neighbors, they are still that close to you. The last thing you want to do is to make life that difficult. So just learn how to say, I am sorry. That's one of the best things we can do if we really want to feed our neighbor. Okay, I did add some nutmeg to this as well. Now it's time for me to create a little bit of a glaze. Now, in order for this to melt, the pan is still hot enough and I don't want it to burn, so I've got to be really attentive to it. I've got this on a super low heat, okay? Let's put you off to the side because you are basically done. This is going to finish off in an oven too, by the way. Now I've got to create a little bit of a glaze for my, salmon. Let's move you out of the way. Let's switch you to it. And I am going to now reduce a little sauce. A sauce that's going to consist of some sweated out onions. I'm going to add some olive oil to this as well. Season that with a little bit of salt and pepper to kind of help bring out, some of the wetness. And you're going to need a little bit of that anyway because this is going to be a very sweet glaze made with neighbors to the north, a nice little maple syrup. All right. So let that continue to cook. I've got my eye on this. That's pressing down. This is going to eventually melt to the point where it's ridiculously delicious and gooey. And now to this, I am also going to shave out some ginger, and I'm going to press some garlic as well. When we talk about neighbors, let's make sure we consider something. how do you talk about your neighbors? It's so easy to kind of develop a very parochial mentality, you know, like an idea that you've got a fence around you, therefore you have no real concern about what happens next door. Well, I don't want you to be nosy, but at the same time, I think it's important for people to care. And that's definitely what a neighbor does. When I was a kid growing up, we not only, considered each other family, we definitely celebrated together, and we even prayed together. And that's a really important thing. It turns neighbors into family. Okay, so here's the ginger. What I've got to do is just shave a little bit of this ginger off. Created a flat base, very simple. Now that I've got that section out, using my little grater microplane, I'm just basically going to shave out some ginger right here. It all depends. If you want this super gingery, that's fine, add a little bit more. But remember, this goes a very long way. Let this continue to saute. We'll see just how these sandwiches are doing. Oh yes, we have achieved grill marks, which is a good thing and we even achieved a little bit of crusting on there, but that's easy. Just shave that off. That'll be the piece you eat. You want to give your neighbors the good ones, right? All right, that is absolutely beautiful. That backside needs to get turned down a little bit. The cheese is eventually going to melt. You know what? I think I'm going to actually just go ahead and finish this all off now in the oven. Let these just rest. I turned these off completely. We're going to pop that in the oven, top it all off with a little bit of this cheesy sauce. It's got some nutmeg in it. We've got the Gruyere cheese, some Parmesan cheese. I could just eat this right now, but we're not going to. It's going to be a topping. Such a shame. We achieved beautiful grill marks, and we're going to actually cover it all up. Don't worry, it's all going to be in the flavor. This is working out nicely. This continues to cook down. Now that this is sweated out a little bit, let's add some other goodness. Some orange juice. Let's add now some ketchup. Let's also add to this some molasses, as well as now the maple syrup. The maple leaf, I know your national flag, our neighbors to the north, should be very proud of it. As well as the beautiful history of your country and the good relations that we have here in North America. Let this continue to reduce to half so it's kind of like a thick glaze again, because that'll cook beautifully over our salmon, which is not going to take a long time to cook. So let this reduce, let this continue to cook, let this move until the oven, and I think we're going to have a feast for our neighbors. One of the things that my mom and dad taught me when I was a kid was that they showed me that a neighborhood becomes an extension of the family. In my Filipino culture, everyone is a tito or a tita. They're uncles and aunts, so to speak. And when we moved to this country, these people who live next to us, because of their goodness and their welcoming of us as their neighbor, they're actually family to me now. As my sauce continues to reduce, I'm going to actually flip this over, these potatoes. And you've got to be super, super careful because this has a lot of hot butter on it. And so to protect myself, I'm actually going to just cover myself up as well. But this will be okay. I've done this before. So a little bit of pressure, something big enough to cover the top of the pan. We're going to flip it around. Be careful again with the butter. That is beautiful. Guess what? Slide you back over as best as possible. And it'll work out in the end. Cover that up. Put that off to the side. Let's assemble the sandwiches completely now, okay? All right, so we've got these sandwiches all lined up. Notice what I'm doing, I'm putting on a little cookie sheet here to kind of create a little bit of space, because I don't want these sandwiches to basically be sitting and soaking in sauce, because this is what's going to happen next. I am going to top these sandwiches off with a little bit of this cream. Sometimes you may have to add a little bit more cream to get the super consistency, because the longer it warms up, the more it is going to thicken up, and you don't want that. So here's what I'm gonna do. Even though I've got beautiful grill marks on there, I am going to top this off. Not over the whole thing though. Just maybe over the majority of the sandwich, keeping the sides free so that you can pick it up. You got a little spot to pick it up, all right? And here we go. Oh my gosh, that is looking delicious. Again, if I wanted to make this a croque madame, I would basically add a raw egg on top of it, throw it in the oven at 350 degrees. That sauce is continuing to reduce nicely. Into the oven you go until you basically see it bubble up, which will only take about, I don't know, 5 at the most, 7, no more than 10 minutes. So into the oven you go, keep an eye on it. Now let's prep the salmon. We've got some salmon right here. I'm gonna season it both sides with some salt and pepper. That's it. That's all you need. A little bit of salt, even with the skin side down, and then the pepper as well. And then once that's all done, we are going to heat this pan up, because we're just going to saute this and add a little bit of the glaze on top of it. Couldn't get any simpler than that. That fresh salmon that you get from up north, absolutely delicious. A great way to celebrate our close proximity to one another. Just wait till this heats up. This glaze is reducing nicely, and I'm simply gonna just spoon some of this out there. You can see how this is thickening up super quick. That's really gonna be delicious, even though it has one of the little potatoes fell out of place. No big deal. If your neighbors care about you, they will forgive you. Why? Because who's perfect? You know, I kind of think about that sometimes. When we talk about each other, especially gossiping, it's only because we think we're perfect. Folks, we are not. Flesh side down so that we can get some nice grill marks onto it, or at least a nice sear onto it. Cook this about 2 minutes on each side, flip it over, glaze it. It'll be awesome. When we think about neighbors and we think about neighborhood, and we kind of relate it to our faith, I want you to think about where Christ is. Christ becomes a neighbor to you. He will be a companion. That means someone who will share bread with you. He will be someone who walks with you on our journey. But ultimately, Christ does not want to be just a neighbor. Christ wants to be a resident in our soul. He doesn't want to just stand next to you, in front of you, or behind you. He wants to dwell with you. And when we think about neighborhood in a theological context, let's think of heaven, where we're not just neighbors anymore. We are dwelling in God, and God dwelling in us. All right, here we go. We are now ready to kind of plate this all together. I've got my potato galette, or that little potato cake out. Yep, yeah, this is beautiful. This is now kind of bubbling over. Beautiful, it's gonna be nice and creamy. Let's put this off to the side before we kind of plate that up. I will now put the salmon as well as the potato all together. Oh yeah, nice and crispy, absolutely delicious. And it'll be soft and cooked all the way through, no doubt. Here we go. If it falls apart on you, again, not a problem. I think your neighbors will be very forgiving, especially since you know this is a feast for the soul, right? I mean, how comforting is it to know that people who are near you love you enough that they want to feed you? So we've got this salmon up. Let's now put out our little croque monsieur. Now with the croque monsieur, you see how it's got all bubbly up, and it's got a little bit of this nice little, a little bit more toasting from the oven, just a few minutes in the oven. And we gotta be real careful with it though, because it is kind of hot and gooey. And let's cut into this bad boy and see what it's like. Cutting in a little bit on an angle. Oh yeah, you can see it's going to be too gushy and mushy and absolutely delicious. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these all together right here. Good, good stuff. So what I've got for you all right now, a little croque monsieur action. Garnish that with a little bit of herbs as well. Give it nice bright color. Let your neighbor know this meal is something special. Let your neighbor know that you care enough, that you really want to make sure that they're being fed body, mind, and soul. And by the way, if you really have a good neighbor, you're going to want to share with them some good news. And why? Because Christ is more than a neighbor. He doesn't live next to us in the Eucharist. He lives inside of us. And so make sure you share that good news with your neighbor. And we will see you next time on Savoring Our Faith. God bless you, Canada, our neighbors to the north, here on EWTN.